Hello again. So welcome to my channel one more time. So you know that recently with Daniel, we have announced a course on psychology and astrology. And today I have Daniel with me. So we will talk about our course and you will also get to know Daniel better. So welcome, Daniel. How are you?
Thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here with you again to talk about this. I'm doing great. I had a really good end of 2024, and I hope 2025 will be even better than the last year.
Yeah, hopefully so. Okay, and we are also so excited for our course, just like our students who have enrolled so far. I think there are 6 or 7 students who wants to join. So they are so excited. We are so excited, and I'm so happy to be doing this with you. Like you are a clinical psychologist, so I think your contribution will be pretty valuable. So for that, like also for people who don't know you, so some of my followers know you from my videos, like you were in Aries Moon video, you were in psychology and astrology videos, but still I would love them to get to know you better. So for that reason, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I live in Brazil. I was born and raised here. And, you know, ever since I was a little kid, I was, the kind of child that would love to talk to adults. I was very perceptive of my environment, and I was always, curious about how people act the way they act. And that was something that was always with me, later on, I started to study law at first, for my bachelor's degree. But when I was inside, studying law, and I discovered psychology. I had psychology lessons there, and I've just fell in love with it, and I decided to pursue that path of studying psychology, and I haven't stopped ever since, and it's a great thing for me, and I think that by our professions and not only psychology, we're here to help people. And there's a great gift in that, there's a way of, helping people. If you're rich and spreading your riches around, that's a good way to help. But there's also a way of, uh, helping people to find their own riches within, to stop suffering and everything. And so I believe in these kinds of jobs very much, and I think they're very needed, nowadays. So I was born under a Libra sun, an Aries moon, and a Leo rising. I got a lot of fire in my chart, so that makes me very driven, you know. And I can't just stand still. I also have a cardinal grand cross in my chart, and there's a lot of energy for me to do things. And psychology is kind of strict on how things have to be and how they should be. And it was a little bit hard to navigate through because I always loved astrology as well. It has been in my life since I was a teenager. I know my mother had my chart read right before I was born.
Wow.
And yeah, so it has been a long journey trying to find a path between two passions I have. And thank God I found you, thank God I found all of those people that participated in the panel. It was extremely inspiring for me to, keep on studying and seeing the correlations between things. And astrology is a universal language, you know, uh, and we are part of a bigger system than just our organisms. So it's amazing what we can do, and I'm extremely excited, and I believe in it so much, and I think we can do a great job and a purposeful job on doing so.
Yeah, me too. I'm super excited. So Also, thank you for coming up with this. So Daniel theorized the course. So he had the idea. So I'm so happy with that as well. And also I'm curious, or people are also curious about your practice in psychology. So what type of therapies do you practice? What approach do you use in your therapies? So what experience you have as a psychologist? So would you also talk about that?
Yeah, sure. As soon as I graduated from school, I went to Canada and I didn't practice for a while. Was 1.5 years in living in Vancouver. And as soon as I got back, I started my clinical practice, my private clinical practice. And also, I got a job in the universal healthcare system here in Brazil. So it's a really intense job because we're dealing with a lot of people under the social vulnerabilities. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of crime, and we treat people who are at the end of that violence mostly. And so it's been what, like 5 years doing that, and it's also, every day it's something different, and it helped me a lot on my practice. At first, when I graduated, I liked especially psychoanalysis, and I don't know if everyone is aware of that, but it's just, Freud was the one who funded the idea, who developed it. And later on, I found about always humanistic astrology, or humanistic psychology. And there's this guy, Viktor Frankl, and he's the author of Human Search for Meaning. It's a book that he developed, and it tells the story of him in the concentration camps in the Second World War. He was a prisoner there, and he developed a the spiritual psychological kind of theory there, and it appeals to me very much because psychoanalysis is mainly materialistic, you know, and he stretched a little bit the limits of psychology doing that, because we see a lot of lack of meaning and purpose around. And so he says that these are conditions of the spirit, not the mind anymore. And I believe that, deeply. So that's what I use to guide my work. I see a lot of people, and most of their their complaints lie on this aspect of life, the spiritual one. The lack of meaning, the lack of purpose, the emptiness of everything. And I think also with astrology, we can help them, you know, at least orient people better whenever you know these kinds of things. If you understand human beings in a sense that they are way more than just matter, they're just way more than their pains and everything. And we can dive into so many things in this course that I'm really excited.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Daniel. And let's see our syllabus. So let's go over it briefly for each week, each topic that we will talk about, so that people will have an idea of what we are going to do. So now let's see the first week. It is astrology and psychology at transformative encounter. So I also highly believe in the connection of these two. So when I do readings, when I offer consultations, I usually guide people to therapy. So like I'm not a healer, I'm not a doctor. So I'm just see the patterns in your chart. So you might have these themes in your life. You might have these problems, maybe stemming from your childhood, or you might have these personal issues. So I guide them to see a therapist, and I advise them to go and talk, even though they might not have any major problem oftentimes. So for that, how do you connect astrology and psychology briefly?
Yeah, when in psychology we are used to saying that our clients can only go as further as we have come with our own in battles and our own psychological development and emotional maturity and everything. And I think that goes as well for astrology. If you know yourself better, you can do a better job dealing with another people, dealing with other people in general. So there's always the counterpart also. Uh, it would be good for us to, you know, acknowledge when dealing with a client uh, the depth that that person is willing to go with the reading. So we, are aware of the things we have to say, can say, and the things it would be good not to go there. So it's an intimate encounter, you know. It builds relationships, these kinds of professions. So I think both of them, it's uh, it's a really important thing to just know how to read before you do a reading. How to read the person a little bit beforehand, before the encounter, before you dive deep into it.
Exactly. I also always believe that the person matters, not the chart, the person, how the person
Yes.
behaves, who he or she is. So thank you again. So that will be a cool combination or cool analysis, I believe.
Yeah.
And second topic of our syllabus is the Oedipus complex and early personality development. So like, what can you theorize about that? What can you say about that?
Well, the Oedipus complex in psychology is what determines the beginning of our, it's the root of our personality. So there are a lot uh, of complex and deep things that happen between the relationship between the child and the mother and his father. So I think that when you look at especially Sun, Moon, and also Saturn in astrology, you can see how that person might have developed, socially, because after the child is one with the mother at first, and we can see how it has been nurtured at some point. How was the intrinsical relationship between the child and the mother, and especially when the child was born, and how it developed. So the emotional imprint of the relationship with the mother, it's one of the foundations of our personality, which is the fourth house, right? It's ruled by the fourth house in astrology. And we tend to repeat those patterns that we had as an early child in our relationships when we are adults. And it's good to be aware of those patterns, because so many people have, terrible relationships, toxic ones, and they don't seem to know how to get out of them or not to repeat themselves so much in relationships. But there's a reason for that, and it's usually, rooted in the relationship between the parents and the child.
Exactly, I agree with that. And we will also uncover the patterns in our unconscious as much as we can. So that will be pretty enlightening. And our class will also have an intimate environment. So we will be interactive. I'm so excited for that too. And the third week, we'll focus on fire, earth, air, and water. So I like those who know me knows that like I take great importance for the elements. So I think each element deals with psychological issues differently. So there's a style and there's a method for each element. So yeah, what can you say about the importance of elements in personhood?
You know, the elements is like the basic energy at play. It's something that most people they cannot just pretend they're not under that influence. It's the foundation of their energy and how they behave. So with the placements in certain elements, we can see such different kinds of approaches to life and how people are reactive to things. So whenever I'm with a patient, I I search to find at least their big three, so I know a little bit of the elements that play, especially the moon, because I'm dealing directly with that environment. So you can see something like the fire moons, they tend to, you know, make fun of things that they are actually in pain about, you know. But whenever they see it and they take it seriously, it goes quick. The process is quick of them, fighting their own inner battles and facing their mishaps and everything. So it's quite interesting. The earth moons, they're extremely resistant to therapy usually. And but they put in the work. They are the clients that stay with me the longest usually, the earth and the water placements, the strong ones. And the air, it can be kind of hard because they tend to rationalize everything and forget about the feelings. So it's hard to access that sometimes. So we end up learning a little bit of how to deal with them and to respect them also in their own limits and the limitations. So there's no element there's not capable of going through therapy and or a therapeutic process. Well, they have the differences, and we should know how to approach them too. And also the
Exactly.
defense mechanisms, each one of them will defend themselves in a different way because therapy is a vulnerable place. So we're going to show a lot of defenses there in that.
Exactly. So as a Scorpio moon, like I can talk about these defenses. So I know these from myself. Thank you. And fourth week, astrological houses and life areas. I think these are really connected to psychology and astrology, because in astrology, sixth house is physical health, 12th house is mental health, and they're opposing each other. So if you need to have good physical health, you should have a good mental health, and vice versa. And it highlights the importance of the unity of body and mind and the soul, basically. So also each house like represents the personal development age periods. So we will go over these things. So for that, like what do you think? Like how do you think the houses are important for psychological development?
Yeah, you said it. It's a psychological development, So every house corresponds to a stage we're going through in life, and it just keeps going. Just it doesn't stop. So when we look at them, we see that there's a time, a cycle for that subject at hand, and people are usually anxious about their troubles and their problems too because they think it's going to last forever, but there's a time for that. So when you put things into perspective, especially about time, and astrology teaches us that everything has a time, a right time for us to deal with. And so we can just start looking at it in a form of guidance for our own emotional body, for our own emotional state. Because we have to take responsibility for the things that are happening to us and what we can do and the possibilities we can act upon. So, and I think that astrology helps more psychology in that area about the cycles and everything to understand things in a cyclical way, the stages of life. So also when we see the developmental phases of childhood and everything, if we see some difficult placements there, houses 2, 3, early childhood, school, and everything, we can see that if there's trauma there, and which can define a lot about our personalities as well. So it's a thing that it's gonna be good to reflect upon. I think it's gonna be a more philosophical part of our course.
Exactly. So everything happens for a reason at the right time.
Yes.
Okay. So the second month, second module, we will go deeper. So we will take a look at moon. So as we told, moon is pretty important in psychological development, mother and child relationship, and emotional security and emotional needs. So would you like to add anything related to the moon?
Yeah, I think it's good to emphasize the moon uh, when when we're dealing with psychology, because what we feel, it has such a power of defining our path, our choices, who do we relate with, what path we choose in life, even professionally. So it's an ever defining planet, the moon. It's extremely important, and the difficulties we find with the moon, they can shape a lot of things, right? So if we can dismantle that a little bit, be aware of those patterns of the influence our behaviors, that can change everything. And if you're dealing with clients and you can make them a little bit aware of that, because the moon also can be unconscious things. So that can help a lot of people. So we forgot, as a species, to deal with our emotions. I come across people that don't can even name what they're feeling.
Yes.
Give name to emotions and feelings, and they shape our beliefs, the emotions we feel, especially in early days, in early years.
Exactly. So also, for example, water moons will understand me when I say this. So when someone asks like why I do something, I answer because I felt that way. So water moon feels that way. So it can be, we'll also take a look at the elements, of course, and that will also reveal lots of unconscious patterns. So the moon will be pretty essential in our analysis. And the
Yeah.
following week, we will see the sun. It will be about ego, character, like how we want to see ourselves, how we assert ourselves. So again, how could you comment on the sun's psychological aspect?
Yeah, so the sun, it sometimes people don't relate so much with their sons, because it seems like they're searching for it in a way. They're thinking about it, but not. It's a question of being, right? Being the sun, not thinking about being. And finding purpose, like I said before, it's a huge deal. And it can be scary to just, incorporate your son, your purpose in life, what you're going to do with your life. Because as we said, we can go back a little bit to the houses. There's tension between the the house of who you are, your ascendant, the social house, the house of your partner, and the house of your intimate relationship to yourself. I think if we can integrate all of them. We can find your sun shining, you know. And so there's a lot of ways of, getting in the way of your sun. And it also represents the father, and the father figure can be overwhelming, an ideal you can't reach sometimes. So the sun can be a really complicated thing, and it's a complex thing. So I think it's also extremely important, just like the moon and the Oedipus complexes and everything, the relationship between those two, uh, it, it sets a lot for our lives.
Exactly. So I can also confirm that because I have Leo Sun, which is pretty shiny, extrovert, but I have my Sun in my fourth house, which is pretty private and introvert. So for that, it makes me kind of go back and forth between these two energies.
Yeah,
So I can also talk about my experience in the class. So that's for sure.
yeah, yeah. Me too.
And
With the sun opposing my moon, it's hard to integrate both of them.
yeah,
Really hard. Yeah.
exactly. So next we come to trauma that many people are interested in this. Trauma and complexes, Saturn, Pluto, and Chiron. So in
Yeah.
my practice, I like value Chiron so much. So like I take it like a planet and it can be so crucial and so revealing. And of course, like we know that Saturn and Pluto might be related to malefic things, trauma or struggle. So for that, like I believe the combination will offer lots of imprint of psyche. So for that, like through Saturn, Pluto, and Chiron, what can we see? What do you think?
Well, again, we can see cycles, right? With Saturn, uh, it's a maturing cycle, and it's always a lesson we cannot run from. So I think that in this class, we're gonna, delve a little bit deeper uh, into the nature of this planet we're living in. Saturn, it's something you cannot run from. Also, Pluto. So there are some things. There is a structure that follows our birth chart, and there's always the transits of Saturn too, that it's always teaching us about something, and Pluto, we're leaving behind things that don't serve us anymore. So it takes, there's low planet, so it takes time to get rid of that. And therapy takes time to take to get rid of that. So if you're in a hurry when you first start the therapy, it's not going to be, as purposeful. Maybe you're not going to get the best of it. And Chiron, it's hard for people with hard Chiron placements because it's an open wound. And I think that the traumas, they have such a power of influencing people's lives that they start, making important choices, life-defining choices based on fear, about, fear of past wounds, of getting hurt again. So that's another thing that's going to be important for us to discuss. So you guys can see a little bit of where we're going with this, trying to take out all of the things that might define you, but that don't belong to you. People's expectations, social expectations, your wounds, your past traumas, and try to realize what is your true self. Who are you without your pain? Who are you without, your fear? Who are you afraid to become? So these are the questions that will make, a little bit of meaning, a little bit of purpose come out of, what excites you the most, not what you fear the most.
Yeah, this is an amazing perspective. Thank you so much. And of course, like they will be about patterns, because flow planners go beyond us. So these are like collective, and these are, as you said, social expectations, patterns, and so on. And we will dive into these things. And lastly, for the second module, we have Mercury, Jupiter, and cognitive development. So I think that will be pretty important for people to get to know their learning side. So how they learn, how they empathize with what they learn, who they learn from, like what type of learning is better for them. So how they develop their philosophies. So I think that will be more practical than Saturn, Pluto, and Chiron.
Sure. Yeah.
What do you think about this week?
Yeah, this one it's a little less subjective than the other ones, than the previous ones, right?
Mhm.
Because it's a faculty we can relate to, in a conscious level. It's talking about your conscious and how you develop that and how you communicate with people. How do you also relate to the world and how you build your beliefs, your belief system. And it's also something that has a great power. If you define your beliefs, you end up becoming that, right? So your mind, it can either make you or break you. So it's going to be a really interesting thing, because sometimes clients, they think they are feeling in a certain way, but what is happening is that there is a core belief in there that's telling them how to think and how to react. So beliefs are a major part also of psychology. So especially the cognitive and the conscious mind.
Exactly. So we will see why we believe in something, how we believe in something, and so on. That will be pretty deep as well. And the third month, we will get into relationships, which many people will like. So we have Venus and Mars and relationships. So as I say, like in the classes as well, so Venus and Mars rule hormones. So these are related to relationships, sexuality, female and masculine, feminine and masculine qualities. So what we want, how we act in a relationship, what we need in a relationship, how we show our love, how we show our affection, our love language. So what we perceive as love, what we perceive as, let's say, threat sometimes. So
Yeah.
that will uncover the relationship patterns. And also we will include ascendant and descendant for this analysis. I'm so excited for this one. It will be pretty spicy. So what can you say about that?
Yeah, it can be a spicy one, uh, I think it's one of the hardest things to do as a human being, is to be in a serious relationship, a committed relationship with another one. Because, you know, you find that you're not going to get your way all the time. Things are not going to be your way. And the person you love might not always feel well. The person you love is not always going to be the one you fell in love with. So we're also going to talk about this, passion and love. They're different things, a long-lasting love and the thing you say when you are swept off your feet. They're completely different things, and one can turn into another. So we can also see a little bit of how we deal with other people based on our own egos, our own narcissism. If you think you're too important, that every need you have has to be tended at all times, you're going to be frustrated in a relationship with another person. There's always lack, always in our lives. It's a condition. So there's no way we're going to feel whole as we felt, someday when we were in our mother's womb. So, and we look for that in our lives, and some people project that a lot into our relationships. So there's also a connection to the Oedipus complex again,
Yes.
you know. So how you were treated, how you know observed love, how you learned about love in your own home is how you're gonna automatically, you know, repeat the pattern when you're not at home anymore. But there's also, of course, a way of learning, you know, and overcoming the difficulties you may have in this part. So it's hard, you know, being vulnerable. You know, another person is important to you, and you can be hurt in the process. You know, you probably will. It doesn't mean it has to end. You know, so there's a lot to talk about in
Yes.
this subject. You know, I think it's gonna be a, a long class in this one.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we can go over the limits. No problem with that.
Yeah,
And as you say, we will refer to the Oedipus complex, Sun and Moon when we talk about Venus and Mars. So you also mentioned narcissism, so role of the Sun. So many people are into narcissism. So narcissism is also a kind of buzzword. So like it is used quite often. So you are narcissist, he is narcissist, she is narcissist. But we will really see what narcissism is, and we will see its connection with the Sun. So how do you connect
yeah,
these two, narcissism and the sun?
yeah. So as you said, is a buzzword. It's
Yeah,
overused
yeah,
nowadays, and there is a kind of pathological narcissism. Okay, uh, but we are all narcissists at some extent. You know, it's part of how we are raised. You know, so the first time we come into the world and we learn to differentiate ourselves from others, people start to define us. You know, oh, he's cute, oh, he's intelligent. That's how what people are always saying that to children, and they start to believe in that. That's the first stage of narcissism. So we are born, and the soon as we can differentiate ourselves from another person, there is narcissism involved. You know, so I'm already, you know, doing a spoiler here, but that's something we're gonna, you know, delve into it. But I think its relationship to the sun is that of uncovering who you are uh, in a sense that's not overreacting anything you want it to be, you know, and not your ideal. So narcissism, it's filled with ideals to fulfill. When we're growing up, we're always thinking about what we could be, but not
yes,
what we are. Our essence is our sun. You know what? Not what we want to be, not what
yes,
we want to become. So that's the thing I see about, you know, the correlation between both of them.
exactly. So the sun will be pretty important here. And again, we will continue with like personality. So we will see depression, anxiety, and mental health in astrology. So as you said, here, like as we say here, we have Saturn, which will be about boundaries, Neptune, confusion, escapism, and addictions, Pluto, crisis, Moon, emotions, and we will see how all of these interplay. Of course, we will also refer to houses, 12th house, 8th house, 6th house, for example. So,
Especially,
yeah, especially. So we will see how all these things are interacted, not just by one thing. So you cannot diagnose just by one thing. And in astrology as well, you cannot make a comment just by one thing. You have to consider everything. So yeah,
yeah.
what would you like to say about this topic?
Yeah, you know, I also will address a little bit of psychopathology.
Hmm.
So I would like to clarify to people that it's normal, you know, to feel sad sometimes, and depression is a different thing, you know. And so I'm gonna go over some of the psychopathology and what are the symptoms, you know, the main symptoms and the main ailments in psychology. So we can also, you know, based on the symptoms, which are, basically behaviors, kinds of behaviors, we can see that also playing out in charts, you know, at least the tendency of them appearing or not.
Exactly. So we will see all the interaction here. And
Yeah.
another important topic of the third month, adolescence and astrological transitions. I think that will help people, especially who have adolescent children. So,
Yes.
so we have Uranus rebellion, independence. So we have that Uranus crisis when we were a teenager. Neptune dreams idealism, Pluto change. So also many people meet depression when they are teenagers. So it's the first crisis that we experience. So we will talk about again collective planets and some life, like some period aspects. So like Saturn square Saturn, for example, first Saturn opposition, first Saturn square.
Yes.
So we will talk about these
Uh,
things. So again, that will also depend on the personal transits because let's say if you were born under a specific Saturn placement, this means that when you get to age of 14, Saturn will be in a specific sign. So we can see that in the natal chart as well. We can see how someone will go through adolescence. So adolescence is very important phase in our lives because many psychological, like I think, problems are rooted there, like at the age of 14, 15. So bullying, for example, an important topic in adolescence. So we will talk about this in detail. So what would you like to add as well for adolescence?
yeah, adolescence is a complicated stage of life because you're not an adult and you're not a child anymore. So adolescence begins at, the end of your 12th year. So it's a 12-year cycle. We can see that also in astrology, 12 houses. And once you're not a child anymore, there is an underlying grieving of the child you were, and the responsibilities are coming. And you have to define yourself and find what you're good at, and how to relate to people, and how to be likable, and it can be a really hard uh, time for people, at this age. And they seem to experience it as everything is so defining. They seem to think everything is forever, whatever they're saying, whatever they're doing, whatever they're experiencing. And I think there's a way of connecting to teenagers, you know, and they're always eager to speak out what they're feeling. I love treating adolescents, really, because they are so raw in whatever they have to say. You just have to provide a safe environment for them, no judgments, no preconceived ideas on how they should be, and you'll be fine. They will open up to you if they see you that way, because they want to be independent. They don't want, people telling them what they have to do. So if you teach them about their basic obligations, which is basically just going to school and doing their homework, you can be there for the rest of the things. So most of them, they grow apart from their families because they feel judged there, they don't feel welcome there, and they start to relying on their peers. They're going that which are going through the same things they are. So it can be, destructive to rely on someone who doesn't know how to guide.
Exactly. So we will see the help of astrology here as well, along with
Yes.
psychology. So that will be a pretty interesting session. Okay, so for the final month, we will transcend, we will go beyond. And we will talk about demystifying karma, empowering free will, and astrology. So this is something really important for me as an astrologer because it's the first ethical rule. So you should not affect someone's free will and choice. At the same time, we have our agencies. So the plans don't define us. We can act upon them. So that will kind of uncover or that will kind of clear lots of anxieties about astrology, because people ask me, like, I have Mars in my third house retrograde. Will I have an accident? So no. So this doesn't mean that like you will be subject to that planet. So of course, like there might be risk, but you know how to navigate. So yeah, what can you highlight about the free will, for example?
Yeah, I think it's of the utmost importance we talk about this because I see people approaching astrology as this massive force they have uh, nothing to do about it. They can't do anything about it to fight it. It's as if they are predetermined to be their charts, and they're not. So there's a way, there's a tendency, of course, in your chart of acting a certain way. And there are things that you cannot choose to go, but they're going to happen to you anyway. So there is karma too, but not everything is karmic,
Yeah.
right? So that's the thing. It's the differentiation between the things you choose and the things you don't. So your behaviors and how you react, that's your free will. That's where you're really free for doing something with your life and with your own, tendencies. But of course, life is life and it happens. There's so many things you cannot control. And so you got to focus on what you can do. And I think astrology is a tool for empowering people,
Yes.
not for leaving them scared.
Exactly. So it makes us claim our agency, basically. And
Yes.
the following week, we will have Neptune, emotions, addiction, self-undoing, and the 12th house, basically. So Neptune is a very important planet. So like many people are really anxious about Pluto, but I'm personally more anxious about Neptune. So it can be so deep and so like let's say non-tangible in a way. So it is also pretty important for addictions like psychology, spirituality, beliefs, like escapism and so on. So, like, if you don't know how to navigate Neptune, it can be your self-undoing, basically. So, yeah, what would you like to say about that now?
Yeah, I like that expression, self-undoing, because it's a big thing, especially in psychoanalysis.
Hmm.
You know, they say there's always a little bit of desire on what uh, the person is complaining about. So we sometimes we have some kind of not ideal situation in our lives, and we start complaining about it and everything, but we are you really doing something to take that out of the way? So when you bring responsibility to people who complain a lot,
Hmm.
they get defensive,
Yes.
immediately. So there's always blaming other people.
Hmm.
That's the way I see, self-undoing appear in the clinical psychology, all the time. So there's always complaining, there's always finger pointing, pointing blame. And as I see our life and our inner state is a narrative. Who you are is the narrative you build for yourself. So if you are a victim all the time, that's going to have serious consequences on the rest of your life. So but it's usually something that's underlying, it's unconscious, it's a pattern people don't see at first, and it's hard for them to. And I think Neptune is very well involved in that.
Yeah.
And it's extremely difficult, and it takes time, and it takes a lot of practice also, you know,
Yes.
to get rid of
I
those
totally
things.
agree. Yeah. And similar to Neptune, we have Pluto, which is a collective planet, and we will see that grief and transformation. So how people cope with grief, how they transform what they embody in the process, and at the same time, how they are able to transform themselves. So Pluto is about power after all. So I don't see Pluto totally negative. So it makes you go through some crisis, but after all, you claim your own power. So Pluto will be pretty important in our class too. So that grief and that mourning we will have with Pluto. So what would you like to add to Pluto finally?
Yeah, I would just like to add that there are also little deaths in our way. You
Hmm.
know, you're not the same person as you were, a couple of years back, and you had to give up that kind of person you were before to become this one. And that also involves grief, you know, and we lose some spots, and some parts we used to play that we don't anymore. We were the dear child, we were, spoiled by everyone at some point, and then we suddenly lose that spot because there's another child coming, a brother, a sister, a little brother, a little sister, so they lose their spot. So it's good to think of that also in siblings, especially if you're the older ones. And also when we graduate, we're not students anymore.
Yes.
So there's also grieving there. So graduation, it's a rite of passage. And I see many people struggling with that, with
Hmm.
graduation, with what comes next, what to do with myself after that. I'm not a student anymore. So, there's another thing to be rebuilt. No, not rebuilt, but built from scratch. So there's
Yeah.
a lot uh, of pain in all of our lives transformations and the cycles. So there's always some grieving. There's always, just giving up on things and the attachment we have with who we used to be.
Yeah, totally. So, my most difficult time period was right after I graduated. So I went through these things. So, what will I do? So I lost it. I lost my status as a student. And also we
Yeah.
can talk about breakups, divorce. So these are also traumas.
Yes,
So,
of course.
yeah.
There's always grief in there, and
Mhm.
people sometimes they say, oh, when they break up or anything, sometimes they complain, oh, my ex-partner just moved on so quickly. And
Mhm.
sometimes grief happens when the person's still in the relationship.
Yes.
It starts losing touch with each other. And when the person decides to break up, the person has already felt all the grief about it and about the relationship, and the other one perhaps didn't. So it's a different kind of thing we can also explore. It's really,
Exactly.
really good.
Yeah, so it can also be about how grieving might turn into melancholia. So I know Freud has a book called Mourning and Melancholia. So we might
Yes.
talk about that.
Yeah, it's a
Okay,
beautiful book, really.
exactly. So it was my topic in presentation. I took American drama class, so we were analyzing plays regarding Freud's Mourning and Melancholia. It was my topic of presentation. That's how I know. Okay. So in the final week, so you were also in my birth chart reading workshop, and that workshop was really like productive. So we will pick a chart of a famous person, and we will analyze that person's journey and psychological journey and collective journey or social, like let's say, advancement. So the final week will be the week that we will combine everything. At the same time now, I'm in my practice, like I will also be talking about the students' charts each week right after you talk, like about Sun, for example. I will analyze the students' sound placements, and you will also help me. Like we will do it collectively, cooperatively. So each week we will also have like the practice, the interactive practice. But in the final week, we will have a case study. I'm so excited for that too. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. You know, I hope we have, a good environment for people also to share what
Mhm.
they think, and I hope we can all learn. I'm sure I'm gonna learn a lot too.
Yeah.
Especially when you pull up the charts and everything. I think it's gonna be awesome, really, for us. Just not just professionally, but in our lives too. I think you're gonna carry these kinds of knowledge into your day-to-day life and your own growth processes.
Yeah, like I will also learn from you even now in this hour. Like I have learned so much from you, and it felt like a therapy at the same time. So to talk about these things, and thank you so much again. Okay,
Yeah,
so
thank you, Matt.
yeah, welcome. And yeah, as you see, we are so excited and we are so ready for our course. So it will be amazing. So we can't wait. So our course will start on the 1st of March at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So it will be on Zoom live and then it will be recorded and you will have the access to recordings. So it will be a pretty special environment and pretty special class and we will love to see you there. So already like it's getting full. So if you want to join for this session, for this March class, so you can hurry up a little bit. Okay, thank you so much, Daniel. So it was a pleasure to be with
It
you.
was a pleasure as always, man. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to meeting all our students too. I think it's gonna be amazing. We can do a great job.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, then let's say goodbye and see you in the class. And like, even though you might not want to take the class, you can still watch this video because like we have talked about lots of deep stuff. So see you next time.
Yeah.
Take care and goodbye.